Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of January the 9th, 2023. We have actually quite a balanced sky this week, yet we are not going to be experiencing it as balance, quite the opposite. But this in a way is almost needed because we have two retrogrades getting very intense at the same time. Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde. And also this is the week when Mars actually stops in the sky and prepares to go direct. And that, is a moment which usually comes as a wrap up of the larger Mars retrograde. But with Mercury still being retrograde, we might have certain difficulties actually figuring it out, processing it, and drawing some final conclusions. So in this sense, the retrogrades are still ongoing, needing balance, and it is exactly our attempt, our efforts, our intention to process what we can and also put on the shelf that which we do not have enough clarity to actually comprehend in a useful way. This attitude of ours to be very good mental, or better said, everything that has to do with the sphere of the mind, good managers in this sense, because when Mars is so very concentrated and intense in an air sign and also in the sign which actually rules lower mind, everyday thinking, how we solve everyday problems with our intellect, well, you can imagine that that will require some either action or communication done in a different way, where we are very much invited to embody all the wisdom and all the perspective, opinions, understanding of others that we have gained through this larger Mars retrograde period. So going well back into last year, December. So it is not going to be an easy week in this sense, in a lived way, although the energy out there is quite stable, and this is quite a rare moment of respite, because you can imagine that the stability in that sense and perhaps the break in that sense is going to be very, very short term, because the energies that will shatter collective reality very, very soon, just knocking at the door. And this means that individual reality either precedes that or follows it after, depending on, our own situation. So that will be like a wrecking ball, and Pluto is also preparing for that. Jupiter is already in full swing for that. Saturn is following. The nodes are getting into place, and then the eclipses, especially the first eclipse on the 20th of April, is going to be knocking at the door quite intensely. And it's so intense that even now, very, very, very slightly subjectively, we can feel the eclipse's reverberation. And how? Well, actually, our inner beings instinctually. And this instinct is like an octopus, and it has tentacles, at least one tentacle in every other construct of our being. Mind, heart, emotion, shadow, lower ego, higher self. It has a tentacle basically everywhere it can. So it sends impulses, it prepares. Because the Aries energy will come through quite instinctively through our, actually, in a way, physically, it's the energy, the electricity, ultimately the light that is in our physical neurons and circulates in our being, in our body, in our nervous, everything, And this reminds me that the sorry, I'm so sorry, I apologize to her in first, the planetoid, Salasha, salt water, the salt in the water, seawater. And also, Salasha is basically the most sublime octave of Neptune, where the magic of her moment, usually light in some form, cast on anything, not just water, of course, but water is one of, like moonlight, full moon reflecting on a lake. That would be a prime example of the Salasha's, more soul expression. But it can be anything where the light plays it with our be anyway. Where I'm going, but she is also a resident of Aries, so you can imagine that Salasha's expression also represents a gateway to us to feel, experience, be prepared, whatever is conjuring up, of course, by the eclipse, but it's preparing us. What are your instinctual intentions? What do you just feel in the air preparing for yourself? What are your inner impulses? It doesn't have to make any sense. Like, let's say your life is not permissive, but what are you deeply feeling? As in a next step. Not necessarily that is dependent all that much of you, but rather, let me give you another example so you can imagine. And I'll use the self. I'm usually a person who doesn't travel a lot, doesn't move a lot. I'm very, very fourth house type. I'm planted there and I stay. But when for absolutely no reason, not intuitively at all, but rather instinctually, I have a certain kind of anxious sensation that that I need to move, either travel or an experience of this. It kind of prepares my body, prepares the inner animal, basically, the mobility of it. That's already, when it comes through my instincts, that something is gonna be prepared. And my intuition should not know this because it's, for example, eclipse energy, if you know what I mean. So intuition should be eclipsed. All the higher functions in that sense cannot cheat it out. So, but no problem at all. The instinct, the sheer instinct, is a very valid gateway. So after this being said, what are you prepared? What are you being prepared? And in a way where it's not really what you want, it doesn't really come from your own projection, creation, or your inner alchemy. Rather, it's just something that you just feel inside of yourself. Chances are that is what you're gonna be experiencing after the eclipse, after the stronger, the more intense activation of this Aries energy later on, not this week, but this week under this retrogrades, where, you can, the best way to imagine this, where we are a colony of ants, and we all have the direction, what we need to do, what our personal roles are. But then there comes Mercury retrograde, and there's a big disruption. Let's say rather a chemical disruption. Comes a predator with strong chemical weapons or whatever, and it disrupts the synergy between the ants a bit. But then we also have Mars retrograde, so there is a storm or a rain or something that is also. So you can imagine that we as the little ants are gonna have quite a challenging time, yet nothing that we cannot cope with, nothing that we cannot process, not the queen basically is very much okay. So this week is gonna be in a way very dynamic, but we will not feel that we moved anywhere, that we didn't make progress. Yet the dynamism is very, very much present in any way, shape, and form. let's say, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, in a very earthly way as well, socially, friends, people, things, communication, information, invitations, sudden, unexpected change of plans, communication. There are also going to be a lot of surprise moments this week which change everything and force you to think. So let's begin this horoscope where one of the more soothing and joyful energies is without a doubt Venus at the beginning of the week in the sign of Aquarius, trining Mars retrograde. But when I say Mars retrograde, it's already slow. It's already barely. So it's already Mars, standing still-ish. In which means that, yeah, the intensity is very, very much there. So trine Venus, something was definitely accomplished. Something is better than you thought it was. Or this can be realizations, accomplishments, uh, with anything that has to do with internet sharing information, communication. A Mars in Gemini can also rule documents, petitions, communication with officialities, where your case was looked at and it is favorable, and not really in court of just, not really something very, very sophisticated, but rather, even it's a refund, someone has to, you know, process it, look at it, judge it, decide it, work with it. So there might be some favorable communication, favorable turn around, even Mars retrograde, of events where you thought, my case will probably not be successful, my petition will and surprise, surprise, even if it's not, some alternative can be offered. Um, at the same time, we also have Mercury conjunct the Sun, not tightly, because their conjunction is already, breaking up because Mercury is going backwards, retrograde, but it's still a moment when we are very, very much aware and we are pretty much grounded because Mercury retrograde in Capricorn and earthly things, hierarchy, where we stand, what we have power over, when, how will have power over us. And this is very problem solving energy, just like any other earth sign. Just that it will require communication, research, maybe consultation of specialists, patience for things to be figured out, those which do not depend on us. It can also be, for example, Mercury retrograde, something broke. Maybe something quite important. And the specialist is having a bit of difficult time figuring it exactly out, so a patience. But this is where you might think, do I get a second opinion or do I trust this person? And you cannot go either right or wrong because it is what it is. Your call, and how much wisdom can you have there? I'm sorry. So it's very useful for these types of fixing energies and really you trying to decide on something. For example, someone who needs to relocate or just change homes, and you do look at what's available and you might have a really good idea in your mind, even a very solid plan. And surprise, surprise, Mercury trine his higher octave Uranus, something even favorable out of, I don't know, the blue, comes and nullifies your very, very, very good, solid, and you had everything, even resource-wise, plan. So, or something else comes and, oh, it's much wiser not for me not to move yet. Or something so favorable comes that you won't move, as in you get such a cheap deal. When, let's say when you announce that I'm moving, they say half price. Okay, but half price, are you sure? So it can be quite a favorable energy with, pleasant surprises. This can also be pleasant communication. This can also represent gains. Why not? Earth trine, this air trine with the Venus trine Mars, but what I was saying is Mercury trine Uranus. That is the Earth trine. So Earth trine is basically useful in so very many ways, even if the direct effect is not, how should I say, material. For example, you are a professional and you're having a hard time, you get such a positive feedback, which is just word Mercury, that it just resets your brain and you become better. But it can also be any earthly experienced energy in that sense, even though none of these two planets conversing are pointing to sensual and erotic stuff, yet there is Mars in Venus trine. You never know, what else goes hand in hand with erotic stuff, basically. Jupiter in the sign of Aries, well, this is also very, very important because it is about to exit its shadow path. So it's really, really wrapping up very, very intense things. And Jupiter, on the other hand, has a lot to do with justice and with deeper meaning, higher meaning of justice, even in an earthly way. And in the very beginning degrees of Aries, it is very much about what's out there in the world and quite collectively and on a world stage. But it also has a nuance to it where if we have any fight for justice in our lives, and this can be quite actually a trial, a legal case, etc., this is when we need to gather up our strength, energies, motivate ourselves, find determination, and start, especially after the retrograde, taking more grounded or more, how should I say, sovereign action. Because Jupiter in Aries is all about sovereignty, truly. And then after we move on around the 9th, we do have quite a powerful energy shift, which is deeply psychological, yet it matters all that much. Black Moon Lilith leaves the sign of Cancer, finally releasing 29 the anoretic Cancer, because it is so difficult hormonally, health wise. It does. Black Moon Lilith had in water signs, even Cancer does have a modus operandi to her where she does spread diseases. She favors infections of any kind. This is when exchanging bodily fluids goes so and so. It might offer the pleasure, Lilith, but it might also offer unwanted things. So, but finally this is ending. So this is a good thing because we are but there is the sign of Leo, which is fixed, very, very fixed. And it's highly emotional in the sense that not in a Cancer way, wishy-washy, but emotional fire, storm. It burns. It's the sun, house of the sun. It's royal. It is very, very, very self-centered. So, Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Leo, the worst, and she will whiz through it in a way in a year or so, and she's not yet at any more dangerous degree. So when she enters, it's not all that a big deal, but the dangers to it, this energy can create birth narcissists. This can spoil someone's very healthy, how should I even realized, accomplished, triumphant, successful self. It can spoil it and make arrogance, self-centeredness in a grocery, or I don't know how to say that word, way where it's not inspirational anymore. It's just tyrannic, and it's so, yeah. But there's also a favorable side to it, where even those weak at heart, even those individuals, beings who are not um, neighbors with the realm and the dimension of courage, might find themselves much more courageous than under any other energy. Not just because Lilith herself, but imagine Jupiter in Aries expanding Aries. That's the boldness needed and the impulse. And Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Leo, well, she says, well, ultimately, nature designed everyone, every single person, being, creature, sentient, living, unliving, whatever, that there needs to be a fight for the self, and the self must be more important than anything because this is basically divine programming within nature. So everyone's included, but everyone has to manifest this their own way. Now, if we take a saint, let's not think that this energy does not exist within that being, but it will, how should I say, manifest it, express it in a saintly way, where there comes a ravenous bear and defends the saint from anything, anyone, anything. They solved it that way, but the rest of the beings will kind of solve it in a very direct way, where it will make so much sense in the heart why you should fight for yourself, why your rights do matter, why you have certain divine rights for the sheer sake of existing here and now and breathing, being able to breathe. And every breath you take is ultimately a moment of courage, a choice of courage, an acceptance, being part of the adventure of life. And this also reminds us of COVID, where people were suffocating. But, of course, we must not see this individually. We must see this as humankind suffocating. And suffocation means that we, spiritually speaking, energetically, psychologically speaking, parapsychologically speaking, that we were distant, very, 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 very distant from the divine breath. The divine itself could not breathe through us because we had no sacredness anymore. The internet, social media, of course not. But there was a moment of, reset when we needed to fight for breath. So this is basically also Black Moon's Lilith expression in the Leo. We must convince the divine to breathe through us, and sometimes that will require us to fight for our own breath because we value it, because it's sacred to us, and ultimately it is our creational energy. The heart itself also needs to breathe, and the breath of the heart is love. So certain people who have big troubles with love, as in they do not feel worthy enough to feel any kind of love, they have problems. What can I say? Lilith can be a very powerful healing force for them because it's the animal within them that ultimately needs the healing, because chances are the higher self is unnaturally dominant. It doesn't want to, but when something shut out the instinct, the inner animal, then the higher self just keeps us alive as it can. As it does, it should not, because it's not designed to reach certain lower depths, but out of kindness and compassion and whatever, your own personal strength, whoever would be subject to this example, it still managed to find a way to compensate, to fall in order to keep you alive. So you can imagine that the healing, regeneration of the inner animal, what a great breath of fresh, new, actually rebirth can be for some people out there, especially those who, how should I express this, who do need this quite a lot, especially when Black Moon Lilith is at the beginning degrees of the sign of Leo. So this is like the electric shock that kickstarts the heart. This is when someone's passed out and the odor, the slap, the flashlight in the eye shocks them back to life. So this can be quite a powerful heal, and including sexually. Because there are many people out there who are actually dead sexually, and that's also in a way distancing from the earthly plane. So, but the not so favorable expression of Black Moon Lilith in Leo can trigger up other types of energies where, for example, jealousy within the family, daughter and mother being jealous of each other, for example. So, and under these energy, there's not so healthy feelings and things are being born. So Black Moon Lilith can also bring the true darkness and the unholiness of all. But she is not a planet. She is very much what we make her to be. She is part of the lower ego. And if one has killed his own lower ego sufficient times, then this energy can only be beneficial to that person. Those who are very much into grasp of the lower ego, perhaps this is the adventure that will alchemize it into something truly wonderful. Now on the world stage, this energy is slightly different because combined with Jupiter, combined with Mars, fight for justice, my rights, the sovereignty taken into our own hands, people rebelling against, how should I express this? Because if Black Moon Lilith activates 0 degrees of Leo now, do not worry because Pluto activates 0 degrees of Aquarius very soon, this year. Very, very soon, in the spring. So, these two energies will build on one another. Leo comes with the heart, a strong rebellion of the heart, and this energy is complemented by one hand Jupiter in the sign of Aries and Mars' very own female expression Eris in the sign of also Aries, and Eris aggressed Pluto for a number of years quite intensely and ruthlessly. So this was already prepared for years. Chances are from 2017 onwards, this was in Eris, the golden apple, the apple of discord, was thrown at Pluto. So Pluto was forcefully preparing this. So now it erupts. It starts erupting as what? Revolution. Now, I personally saw this energy play out when I was 4.5 years old. When in my country in Romania, the communist regime was overthrown by people and, you know, it was all a deception, of course. It was not real. Even us thought it was real. And it really wasn't. It was staged. Now, chances are, whatever is happening now cannot be staged, so it's not what I lived through, but the modus operandi where, well, there's an uprising. What does this even mean? And you just wake up in this. In some parts of the world, of course, not everywhere, absolutely somewhere, in some parts, there will be like a revolution or people attempting to overthrow a government, a political regime, someone's reign. Um, so you can imagine that the example of this will truly play out in 2024. Now it's just a moment of surprise. Well, what happened? How? All of a sudden, just like that? But the alchemy of it in the sky, Eris, Pluto, and Black Moon Lilith herself were prepared, and not to mention Saturn and Pluto conjunction, Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in 2020, both in 2020. So, yeah, yeah, it was a big preparation. So something will start erupting. Not this week, it's not part of this week's horoscopes, of course, but it in a way is, because whatever happens in the heart, well, that's Black Moon, that's collective expression. And let me tell you what happens in the heart. Well, if food prices are ridiculously up, for the every citizen's inner Lilith, that will be this type of message. My immediate survival is put into danger. So this will change all of our, even mine, even someone who lives a Buddhist existence, everyone's inner attitude will be changed towards who represents the danger, who is making the food prices be inaccessible. Everyone will decide who that is for them, but the feeling of rebellion, dissatisfaction, I had enough, I cannot take any more of this and I'm biting back, will be born. The feeling. When Pluto touches zero of Aquarius, then also the thought and the modus operandi. And then it will be a different week's horoscope, what follows. But, as I said, the rebellious heart begins at around the 9th of January, and we're gonna be feeling this very intensely. One way or collectively, that's one thing, but individually, who is our heart starting to burn for? Burn. Now, passion doesn't have to be what we think as love. Hatred, deep hatred, is also a very twisted expression of love, like matter, antimatter. But it's the same thing. Like hydrogen is exactly the same, behaves the same way, does the same as anti-hydrogen. The very same thing when it exists in our world, when we force anti-hydrogen to exist. But it's the same thing, So hatred, in a way, is also passion. Who you hate matters to you. You want to know what she is up to, doing, feeling, for you to hate them more. Or for you to be happy when they're truly miserable. But that's love. I know it's ridiculous. I know we don't want to see it, but if we would, I don't know, measure it scientifically, it would be the lower octave. I mean, the minus love, but love. Love is love. But this can be obsession. This can be sexual attraction. This can be, as I said, anything that stirs up love in your heart. Principle, something moral, a lifestyle, an activity, a creative impulse, your child, something with children, having children, for example. And Black Moon Lilith in Leo, well, this is where children can, in a way, energetically orchestrate their own birth, their souls, as in accidents do happen. But Black Moon Lilith in Leo, when a child is born from this kind of accidental energy, usually that child will have a very amazing life, as in adventurous, usually quite extravagant, but and it that soul will always get what they kind of want from parents, even if their parental situation is unfavorable. These are the kind of souls. It will definitely not turn into trauma and victim and stuff. No, 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 no. It will immediately there and then turn into strength. So yeah, there is this kind of energy. And moving on from Black Moon, because this is long term, they're just gonna be feeling something, someone ill is gonna shock our hearts. And let us hope in the favorable sense. And then on the around the 10th, Venus squaring Uranus, because Venus is in Aquarius, Uranus is in her fixed sign of Taurus. So there is a very, very strong synergy between the planets. Venus rules Taurus, Uranus rules Aquarius. So this will matter a lot. We are going to be feeling this very, very, very intensely. And disruption, challenges, surprises, unexpected, or a lot of energy is going to come from our social circles, from others, from the internet, people, ideas, and this can be quite lucrative projects. Be part of this. But it's disruptive because if you let's make it positive. You are called for this amazing you can't believe that it happened. Surprise, but it happened. And you're almost overjoyed, and then you look at your phone, you're also invited to 5 other projects. And the surprise came in such an excessive way that how do you decide which one's the better? There you have your difficulty. The square. Which one's better? What do I do now? Chances are no one and nothing cares, but the surprise element in a positive way, not only that it's there, but it's guaranteed for you to choose something and then express it in that sense. What you chose, your problem. This can also be you need some kind of advice or help, and you go to your friends' social circle, and the help comes tumultuously. And then there might be a fight in your social, not in a bad way, of course. It can be playful way. Who helps you? Who has the honor of helping you? But you can imagine that we are also part of the helping team. So this energy can mean that when we offer help to someone, let's make sure that we don't offer it in an excessive way because that can overwhelm the person. So let's take it gradually easy because Aquarius does like big chunks of energy, love, money, help, attention, whatever, but it likes it big, 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 big. Or none, or either all or none. This is Aquarius. So we must make sure that we come with measure. And there's the other side to this where it's infinitely stressful. Where, okay, you're connected and you're doing all of this and it advantages you and everyone else, so but it's taking up all your time. Your head is a mush. So, and Mercury retrograde, everything breaks, you're late, miscommunication, humor, laughter, and your own clumsiness. So life will be so very disrupted, but within that chaos, within that disruption, within that your, as I said, brain is a mush, there is so much good, there is so much love, why not? There is so much problem solving, so good creative chaos. But then Mercury progresses backwards quite a lot and starts trining the North Node. And it will trine the North Node, of course, when it starts going direct as well. This is very, very important because, sorry, um, whatever happens within the chaos, within the disruption, some also appeal to the long term and the very important things in life. So there will be either pearls of wisdom, Mercury, advices, help, or something concrete amongst the immediate energy, amongst the chaos. Some things will be almost feel like a gift for the longer term plans, needs, necessities. So there will be quite helpful expressions of energy which will feel like an embrace from life, which will feel like a divine shoulder, because the North Node ultimately. And we also have Mars quincunx Mercury retrograde. And when Mars quincunx is Mercury retrograde, it will be stationary. So retrograde in that way is over. It's very, very intense because it's quincunx. So this can cause fights, disruptions, severe misunderstanding, but also surprise, surprise, the truth is out. So, this energy is the one that can suddenly, unexpectedly make you second think bigger contracts, offers, options, jobs, especially those which were very, very, very recently started. This is the energy of second thinking because it's a quincunx. What we do, the wisdom is not out there. The wisdom is us to find it within the moment and within the self, and nothing outside can help. And quincunx chances our opinion of others, friends, siblings, mom, dad, partner, even child. You need to figure it out. But the opinion of others will be almost forcefully on asked, but there. So, quincunx. But this can also represent big surprise moments. Don't get me wrong. So this week is going to be full of surprises. And a lot of positive is there. A lot of awkward. A lot of, where you just get, how do I even react to this? What do I say? What do I do? What's the right gesture or reaction, or what do I do? There will be a lot of this. And there will be a lot of, in a way, awkward moments when, there are certain people who are very civil, who are always very dignified, very shy, very polite, very, very contained. And all of us have them in our lives. There's that person who is truly the best example. Like, oh, you can't even name one moment when that person was like a wild animal or did something extreme, and there comes the quincunx and you see that moment, and it's humorful, but it's also bonding because you won't be shocked in a negative way, but you will see it as quite, oh, it's an honor that that person who is always the epitome, the prime example, allowed their defense down near me. So, or they included me in their mental breakdown or moment when they were not that prude, or, it's still a bonding energy. So there's the humorous, the positive, the good side, but there's also the awkward when, how do I even react? What do I even do? It's too awkward. But along with this, there's the positive Uranian surprises, some of which can be Venus, Venus Uranus square. Well, some of it can be overwhelming, really, really, the good can be overwhelming too. For example, the good can act like, a moment which shatters years of false belief, low self-worth, if a person lived years of being unfulfilled or unsatisfied and that became their aggressive normality where they defend it, they defend their own low self-worth. Let no one, God or man, come to me and tell me about self-worth, because I choose the low. I'm in love with it. I am it. So bye. And then there comes Uranus, because according to mythology, Uranus did not ask Gaia if she wanted to date. And physical reality confirms that, because it was actually Uranus who threw Theia into Terra, and the moon was born from their collision. So yeah, kind of. So then there comes Uranus and throws something into the value system. And for a person who aggressively wants to have low self-worth and that being shattered, it's not easy. And it's not going to be felt in a positive. In a week or in a few days, when they process what actually happened, of course, there will be moment of when, oh, it was a miracle. But when it happens, it's tears, it's fright, it's like dying almost. So this is one way this square can play out, that was I worthy all along? You know? But there is a warning here. Do not make permanent cosmetic changes, aesthetical changes in any way, shape, and form. If you really love your hair and don't want to sacrifice it, don't make permanent changes, haircuts. Don't do something to it which cannot be undone. Wardrobe changes. Do not throw things out yet. When the impulse, the craze comes over you to throw this out because it's too old, it doesn't represent me anymore, or it reminds me of him and her, and it's not the case anymore, do not throw it out. Yeah, under this energy. Wait until Venus leaves, or wait at least until the square is over. Do not do these things. But to experiment and to go into the surprise, even if it's awkward, absolutely. Just know the measure and don't drown in it. Just the best way is to accept to be an observer. And if you like what you see, then you go deeper and deeper. But that's where the limits are. Be an observer and nothing can go wrong. And you still get the experience. So yes. And afterwards, Mars is gonna start leaving shadow. Not leave, sorry. Going through its shadow, going direct. And before it does that, this week, at the very end of the week, we might have Mars's strong expression where it's it's shadowy, it's intense, it is stationary, so it's quite karmic, and Mars can be aggressive verbally. There can be social media battles, real media battles, and Mercury governing thieves, deception, lies, etc. So be very, very careful. This means identity theft, account theft, anything that you have on the internet, your business, money, stuff like that. There can be like a con, deception, don't click links. Be very, very careful with all of this, because thieves are going to be extremely empowered, but also terrorists, cyber terrorists. So I expect big websites to crash and stuff like that to happen, and to be a lot of deception on social media. So this being said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for everyone's love and support, and for all the help, and for keeping me alive. And I do hope that this was helpful. Until next time, bye for now.